All right, so you've probably heard this word thrown around in the tech world, Kubernetes. It sounds, well, pretty complex, maybe even a little intimidating. But I promise, by the end of this little explainer, you're going to know exactly what it is and why it's so incredibly important. Let's just dive right in. But first, let's zoom out for a second and ask a bigger question. When you're using your favorite app or browsing a website, what is actually happening on the other side? I mean, how do companies manage the massive, complex software that powers pretty much our entire digital lives? To really get Kubernetes, we first have to understand the problem it was built to solve. You see, for a long, long time, software was run what we now call the old way. Just imagine taking a single computer server and installing everything directly onto it. The app, all its little helper libraries, its configuration files, everything was just tangled together. Now, this worked for a while, but it created some serious headaches down the line. And this right here perfectly visualizes that chaos, because everything was so interwoven. Making a simple update was like trying to pull one single thread from a giant tangled ball of yarn. You'd update a library for one application and, whoops, it would completely break another one that depended on the older version. It was fragile, super risky, and it made moving forward with new ideas almost impossible. There just had to be a better way. And that better way? Well, it started with this revolutionary idea, the container. A container is basically a self-contained little box for your application. It packages up the app's code along with everything it needs to run, all the libraries, all the dependencies, the whole shebang. And what that means is the app will run the exact same way no matter where you put that box. The absolute best way to think about it is like a physical shipping container. You know, the ones you see on ships and trains. A shipping container can hold anything, clothes, electronics, cars, and you can move it from a truck to a train to a ship and nobody needs to worry about what's inside. A software container does the exact same thing, but for code. The benefits of this were just huge. All of a sudden, you had consistency everywhere, on your laptop, on the testing server, in the live production environment. You could move applications between different cloud providers, use your servers way more efficiently, and manage things at the application level, not the messy hardware level. Honestly, containers were a total game changer. But, success often creates new challenges. If your amazing app is running perfectly in one container, that's great. But what happens when you need 10 of them, or 1,000, or tens of thousands to serve millions of users around the world? How do you manage all of them? How do you start them, stop them, connect them to each other, and fix them when they inevitably break? This is where our hero finally enters the story, Kubernetes. The name itself actually gives us a massive clue about what it does. It comes from the ancient Greek word for a helmsman, or a ship's pilot, the person who's actually steering the vessel. And that's exactly what Kubernetes is. It's the pilot for your entire fleet of containers. And here's a quick fun fact for you, so you sound like you know what you're talking about. You'll often see Kubernetes shortened to K8s. That's simply because there are 8 letters between the K and the S. It's just a handy little nickname the community uses. So, if our containers are the individual musicians in a giant orchestra, each playing their own instrument, then Kubernetes is the conductor. It doesn't play the instruments itself, but it makes sure every single musician starts on time, plays in harmony, and that the entire symphony just sounds incredible. So, how does this conductor actually do its job? It's a really simple and beautiful concept at its core. You just tell Kubernetes your desired state. For example, you say, hey, I want 5 copies of my web server container running at all times. Kubernetes then constantly watches the current state. If it sees only 4 running because one crashed, it automatically starts a new one to get back to your desired state of 5. It's a constantly self-healing system. Now, it's also really important to understand what Kubernetes is not. It's not some kind of magic wand. It doesn't build your application for you, and it doesn't give you things like databases right out of the box. Think of it more like the foundational operating system for the cloud. It gives you all these powerful building blocks to run your applications, but it still gives you the freedom and flexibility to choose your own tools. And this brings us to a really crucial point. While that conductor analogy is super helpful, Kubernetes is actually even smarter. It pretty much eliminates the need for traditional step-by-step instructions. You don't have to tell it how to get from 4 containers to 5. You just tell it you want to be at 5, and its automated processes work tirelessly, 24/7, to make that happen. So what does all this mean in the real world? Well, before Kubernetes, managing applications at a large scale looked a lot like this chart. A huge amount of manual work for engineers, very low levels of automation, and because of that, lower reliability when things, inevitably went wrong. And this is the world with Kubernetes. By automating all of that tedious management, the amount of manual work just plummets, automation goes through the roof. And because the system is constantly healing and managing itself, the reliability of your applications goes way, way up. So let's just quickly break down those key gains. Self-healing means if a container crashes in the middle of the night, Kubernetes restarts it automatically. No one gets paged. Scalability means if you get a sudden rush of traffic, you just tell Kubernetes, I need 50 copies of my app now, and it just handles it. It makes updates way safer, and it helps you get the absolute most bang for your buck out of your server hardware. Now, this powerful idea wasn't just born overnight. It was released by Google way back in 2014, and it was based on over a decade of their own internal experience running planet-scale systems. They basically took all those hard-earned lessons and gave them to the world as an open-source project for everyone to use. And the world absolutely embraced it. Today, Kubernetes is the undisputed standard. It is the foundation for how basically all modern applications are built, deployed, and managed in the cloud. It's the invisible engine powering so much of what you use every single day, and you probably don't even realize it. Which brings us to a final thought. We've managed to build these incredible automated pilots to steer the massive, complex ships of our digital world. By freeing up humans from all that manual toil, the real question is, what amazing new destinations will we now have the time and the energy to discover? What's the next great idea?